So pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 bill extending several COVID-era policies and programs by allowing virtual meetings to continue from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the end of the agenda. Members of the public attending this public hearing / meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by raising their hand virtually or pressing *9 if participating by phone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Norton Cable website an audio or a video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So conservation members participating tonight are myself, Julian Kadish, Dan Pearson, Mark Fernandez, and Joe Cavallo. We may have other members joining us later. We have Lisa Carosa, Paxton Halsall, and Tom Avest, who may join later. The first item of business is, I guess there is a new bill that automatically any permits between the time of January 1st, 2023 and 2025, January 1st, get an automatic extension. So, John, can you comment a little more on that, or is that the sum total?
Yeah, that's basically the summary from what I gather from reading the correspondence. So actually we had a couple of requests for extensions come in, and they asked if this was applicable. It said, based on what I'm looking at, yes, it is. So their permit is automatically extended for 2 years. And that would mean that any project that was issued between this time frame would get an automatic 2-year extension on top of. So it'd be like if it was issued now, it could get 5 years. So.
Okay. And then we have let's see, file number 250-1161, 171 West Main Street, which was an NRAD request that was previously continued until January 13th, I believe.
That's correct. And we just received some new information, which I have to review.
And then our next item is file number 250-1163 concerning 400 Arnold Palmer Drive and that, or Boulevard, or whatever they call it. And they have also requested a continuance also until January 13th.
Yes, you'll actually have to vote on that one.
And we can entertain a motion right now to do that and get it out of the way. Dan might not be able to make the motion, but
Still moved.
All right, we have a motion by Joe, and Dan, if you want to second it, you can put your thumb up. That's a second. Roll call vote, starting with Dan and Mark.
Aye.
And it looks like Dan also is positive. And Joe?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. So the motion carries. Our next item is, well, it looks like it's, we have this 280 West Main Street, they are requesting a continuance. Is that correct?
You skipped over Mansfield Ave.
I did, because I thought, well, actually, that one, the one that's a January 13th request for continuance, that refers to another one?
Yes, so another last minute request we got for continuance was for 280 West Main Street. And they don't have a file number as of yet, to my
Alright,
knowledge.
So the next item then is, well, you tell me, are we?
So we have to vote to accept the continuance for 280 West Main Street, and then we have to entertain the applicant's representative tonight for 257, 259 Mansfield Ave.
Got it. So we're up to a request for continuation for 280 West Main Street then. So again, looking for a vote, a motion for that.
So moved. Second.
And it looks, well, we got a couple of seconds, but I think we'll say Mark made the motion, Joe made the second. So Dan and Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
And that's an aye from Dan. And Mark?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye, so the motion carries. The hearing for 280 West Main Street is continued until January 13th. And now we come to file number 250-1166 concerning the project at 257/-259 Mansfield Avenue. Do we have a representative?
We do. Good evening, everybody. Malcolm BAC from Bowler Engineering. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving since I saw you last.
We did.
So again, thanks for meeting with this evening. I think I have in my notes, there were kind of two items that the commission had asked us to follow up on as a kind of a really quick summary. We met with the commission a couple of times. We've been approved by the planning board. We were here at the last hearing, and there were the couple items that we were asked to check in on. The first one was, there was a question about, let me share a screen before I get too far. The first one was a question regarding the pole yards and just taking a couple pictures of them. And I tried to explain it, but a picture says 1,000 words. So we did provide a couple photos of those. This is from their New Hampshire location. It's pretty recently built, a kind of couple examples of kind of what they would expect with the pole yard. This one here shows how they would kind of drill the poles kind of at a regular pattern, but essentially for training. There's no real necessarily rhyme or reason to how they set it up, but just they set it up as convenient for training. They would have them up for a period of time. From time to time, they need to replace them as they go bad or they get worn. And then even some classes might consist, as I understand it, of if a pole needs to replace, drilling that pole in place, to practice that on site. Another photo example I have here, this is a much larger scale than what's being proposed at the subject site, but just for kind of context to how they might have like a truck come down in. So they would have kind of this similar situation where they have poles, and I guess we're proposing it as gravel just to be conservative, but really I think it'll be allowed to vegetate a little bit, the pole area. They'll do their training, and then they will walk just like a little bit of area around the outside to access it. We were also asked a question if any of it or all of it could be paved, and that's kind of where the pole photos originated from. We did send a sketch. We ran this past the folks over at ABEW, and they're amenable to paving this area. This would kind of give them an access to pull in, back out, and go out, but then still give them, I guess, what I consider maximum flexibility for how these.
Your picture is loading very slowly, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's now on the screen. So go over that paved area. Is that the red?
That's correct. Yeah, it would give them the ability to pull in a truck, back it out, and pull it out and park up along the poles that might be, used for training in this area, but also give them, I guess, maximum flexibility if they did want to drill more poles in this area for whatever their training needs were. If the commission was amenable to that. We did kind of put in our memo just a quick note about stormwater, and we did the stormwater design, impervious area factors in on a couple of different locations. groundwater recharge requirement, water quality, volume treatment, peak flows, volumes, things like that. And we designed it as if it was impervious, so this doesn't appreciably impact the drainage calcs or anything like that. And it will be treated by a proposed grass swale in bioretention / rain garden area.
I mean, there was some concern expressed about spills of either hydraulic fluid or something like that, should there be a mishap. But I assume these trucks are equipped with, the speedy dry and other materials to manage a spill pretty much on the spot. Is that correct?
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think the trucks wouldn't be there. Like I think the question too was also, are they going to be parked there, staged there, things like that? And really, it would just be used for training. In the above photo, these trucks are here training. They don't park here or anything like that. There's an active class going on. So it wouldn't really be much use of the area at all, except for just minimally during training areas.
Yeah, but there's always the concern for equipment, a malfunction like a hydraulic line giving out and
Yeah.
causing an exposure. So as long as the trucks are equipped with materials to manage that spill on the spot without having to call, Clean Harbors or something like that.
Yeah, I suspect that's pretty regular practice for them in general, because these trucks are everywhere, right? Constantly working along the roads or along wetlands.
All right, was that pretty much the only information that was outstanding?
Yep, yeah, just a quick note. I forget, I think it was Mr. Carvalho had kind of raised the question about the stakes along the 25-foot buffer. So we did ask IBW about that, just to see if there's any concerns on their end. We explained that it would likely be a 4-inch by 4-inch by 4-foot high post with some sort of sign on it. And they had no concerns. They were amenable to that, and they weren't concerned about it being near the pool yard.
So any commission members have questions? Or John, do you have any comments?
No, I think we've hatched this one out enough for this project. I will say to the commission that I don't have order conditions ready up on the Google Drive. I have a draft available. It's pretty standard from what we have issued in the past. I don't have one easily accessible for the board, but if there was anything that the board members would specifically like to add to the order of conditions, if the commission chooses to issue one, because we can't close and issue an order this evening. Well, we have to close and issue an order this evening because of the 21-day window till our next meeting on the 13th. So I just want to bring that up to the board. We can hold off on issuing, but if everyone is comfortable, I don't mind issuing, provided that the board doesn't have a surplus of substantial comments.
Well, I mean, concern was expressed before about the proximity of this equipment near wetlands and sensitive areas. So, I know, Matthew, you don't necessarily have absolute knowledge as to whether these trucks carry a spill kit. And I think that putting that in as a condition might be, I mean, it may be a moot point because, they might carry a spill kit anyway. But I think requesting that they have a spill kit for hydraulic exposure. And, does it happen often? No. But, I have a contractor working on my site, at home right now, and he described an incident where he had a delivery truck that burst a hydraulic line. So it does happen. And
if they don't keep it right in the truck, I'm sure they could keep it in the facility right there. If that's very close as well.
Yeah, so I think that would perhaps, John, be a reasonable condition to include for this particular situation.
Noted. Any of the other members have questions?
Julie, may I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to make sure, and I may have missed it. Did you ever ask Matt, whether during, inclement weather, whether they work inside the training facility or not?
We kind of went over, Matt, maybe you can comment on that, with that in inclement weather, they have an inside facility, yeah?
They do, yeah. So I asked him, cause one of the questions I think came up last hearing was, plowing or things like that. Would they want to do that? They wanted to leave that flexibility open, which is why they were open to the paved, but
Okay,
I would expect
perfect.
that if it was inclement weather, they would go inside because they do have the interior facility too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So that brings up another point that I was gonna add in there too, Matt. I don't know if it's gonna be amenable to the facility and operations, but we're gonna wanna keep any sort of snow storage outside that 25-foot buffer.
Yeah,
So that's probably gonna be one of the conditions I put in there.
that sounds very reasonable. Yeah.
Okay. I think I had that in the draft originally anyway.
Yeah, I think before we end the discussion, we have to open
Yeah,
the questions up to anybody in the meeting who might have a question. So I don't know if this is the time to do that. Any other commission members have questions? If not, anyone in the meeting have a question about this particular project? So I don't see any hands or hear anybody taking their mics off mute and asking, so I think we've addressed all of the concerns. And because it's more than 21 days to our next meeting, we're gonna request, Matt, that we do a continuation until January 13th, but at that time, we would be closing the hearing, entertaining the orders and voting on the orders. So there's no time lost in doing that.
Understood.
So if there are no further questions or discussion, we can entertain a motion to continue this hearing until January 13th.
So moved. Second?
Yeah, I think actually Dan had his thumb up first, so we'll make it. Dan made the motion, Joe made the second, and Dan, you vote yes? That's a yes, and Joe and Mark, how do you vote?
Aye. Aye.
And I'll vote an aye, so the motion carries. So you can go over with John, Matt, as to whether or not you even need to attend the January 13 meeting.
That sounds great. If I don't see you on the 13th, thanks to all the commission members for your time and to John and Megan too.
Matt, before you go, just one clarification. We're gonna be sending potentially an order to you on the 14th, the day after the 13th. Is that correct, or should I send it over to the training facility?
The original?
Yeah.
Yeah, plan on sending it to us. I'll check with them, but I'm sure
Okay.
they'll want us to record it for them. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yes, thanks.
So we dealt with 280 West Main Street. So we're now up to file number 250, 1167, which is somewhere on Reservoir Street and ANRAD. Do we have a representative of that applicant, or have they requested a continuation? Oh,
who's the wetland scientist on the site, is representing the project. I'm also here with Dan Campbell, who is the applicant.
okay. And so we'll have you share your screen.
Absolutely. 1 second, let me just rearrange some. Okay. So this is the site plan for the ANRAD at 0 Reservoir Street. The applicant is requesting the approval of the wetland lines, which consist of a couple of flags here, starting at GCA 10, going to GCA 27. This is a large bordering vegetated wetland system that is in the center of the site. Several parts of this wetland line on the southern section have already been approved through various orders of conditions, but tonight we're just looking for the approval of these 17 or so flags. Site is not.
We just need to zoom out and to confirm the spot on Reservoir Street that we're looking at.
Yep, so this is 25 Reservoir Street, 23 Reservoir Street. Down here to the south is the main road. This is where the other projects were already approved by the commission through several orders of conditions.
So this is Mansfield Avenue down at the bottom of the screen.
Correct, down here to the
Or
south.
140, and the takeoff to Reservoir in Norton is just off to the right of our screen then.
That is correct, yep. This is a large bordering vegetated wetland system in the center of the site. Site's not mapped for any natural heritage, estimated or priority habitat for rare species. There's no mapped potential or certified vernal pools on the site. Additionally, it's not within a FEMA flood zone, outstanding resource water area, or in ACEC. So if you have any questions tonight, I'd be happy to answer them. John and I walked the site this morning to review several of the flags. We were in agreement that the flags were correct on the site walk. Maybe two flags were added today to this site plan and then resubmitted. That was GCA 13 and GCA 14. They weren't shown on the original submittal. And then additionally, there was a skew line in the middle here, so that was also removed and the plan was updated. This is the 25-foot no disturb zone shown here, and then we have the 100-foot buffer zone up to the north going across Reservoir Street. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So basically with each the A and B lots, the entire rear is effectively wetland. And then you've got the front parcel adjacent Reservoir Street is all in the buffer, essentially, effectively.
Yep, so this whole area where my cursor is, that's all bordering vegetated wetland. And then this area up where I'm tracing closest to Reservoir Street is in the buffer zone, so subject to conservation review for anything that would be built there, but outside of the actual wetland itself.
And just to follow up and confirm, this is not a permit for any sort of building or land use development. This is just to review and to assess and verify the accuracy of the wetland delineation. And like Tom said, I was out there this morning with him. We walked the line and there was no need to change any of the flags that are out there. So I just want to let the commission know that if they have any questions or the public have any questions, we can answer them. But I think that we could potentially close this out tonight if we need to.
Yeah, the only question is, I don't see, do we have an ORAD for it, or?
So we do have an ORAD. There's going to be no need to have special conditions for this one because
Okay.
it's only BVW, and the terminology can be from flags. I think it's G14 to Tom. What's the one that's on the property over there to the right?
G27 would be
So
this one.
G26. So G14 to G26. That's what we're confirming. Because those are the flags that are on the property. And that's what I would put on the form.
All right, so any commission members have questions about this? And I'm gonna extend it to anybody in the meeting have questions about this.
Sorry, just a quick question for me on lot A. Are we also confirming the flags on the southern part of the property, or I guess it's actually the whatever part of the bottom part of that property?
No, they are only seeking confirmation of the flags that are on the northern side.
Okay,
Those flags to the rear were already approved through another permit. And
Okay.
I don't think they're gonna be proposing any potential land use development within the wetland or whatever they're proposing in the future. So therefore, the only need would be for getting the street side of the wetlands flagged.
thanks.
Any other questions?
One quick question. There's no annual streams on the property, is there, or adjacent property?
There's
No.
no mapped perennial or intermittent streams located on the site.
No.
Thank you.
So we can proceed to close and then we will vote later with regard to that very restricted ORAD.
Well, I would open it up to the public first to see if they have
Well,
any
yeah,
questions.
but I already asked if anybody in the meeting has questions. Oh, no, I don't see any. And you can do that in one of two ways. You can either go to the reactions button and there is a raise hand option, or we're kind of informal, so you can just take your mic off mute and identify yourself. But I don't see anybody doing that, so I'm presuming there are no comments or questions. And we're coming up against potentially considering a motion to close. So there seem to be no questions. And we're considering if somebody wants to dare to make a motion to close.
So moved.
Motion made by Mark,
Second.
seconded by Joe. Mark and Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
And Dan, I presume that green check mark is a yes, and I'll throw in a yes, so we've closed the ANRAD hearing.
Thank you very
And-
much.
You bet. So we'll bring this up in the sign conditions, et cetera, section. So our next one is an X-rated filing, 250 XXXX Route 123 intersection lights, and I presume that's at North Worcester Street. And did I get that, John?
That's correct.
And so we have a representative for that. application?
Yes. Yep. Matt Shoot here with Beta Group and Elise Tripp as well from Beta Group.
Mhm.
Can folks see a screen right now with a aerial view of the intersection?
We can.
Great. So just want to give everyone a little background on this one. So Beta is working for the town of Norton on this project. It's going to be a construction project where MassDOT will be funding all of the construction, and they're funding all of the right-of-way acquisition that's needed as well, because Route 123 is state highway layout for the entire project limit. North and South Worcester Street are largely town layout, except for there's a portion of North Worcester where MassDOT actually controls up in this area. So it's about 700 feet on 123 and a couple hundred feet down each side street. So we're currently in final design with MassDOT and the town, likely going to construction in the spring of 2026, I believe, if all goes well. So just a little background. I'm sure most folks are very familiar with this intersection. Historically high crash rates, poor alignment with the intersection, a lot of confusion when cars are turning, trying to find gaps. There's no way to accommodate bikes. Sidewalks are kind of spotty. And there's a lot of traffic congestion on the side streets.
Yeah, it's our version of Las Vegas.
Is that a good thing?
Well, I never really liked Las Vegas.
Okay. So this is just a section view of what, you know, the roadway would look like if you're at roadway level driving it. So it's going to be largely, you know, 2 lanes in each direction with a turning lane for a portion. There'll be bike lanes on either side with a buffer between the travel lanes and the bike lanes, and then the sidewalk outside of that. We just tried to sketch on here about what the existing roadway width is out there to compare that with the new cross section. In plan view, looking at the improvements, so, you know, I mentioned the widening here for the 3-lane section. Most of the widening takes place in this area here, because that's really the only space there is to widen with the building constraints. on the edge here. You have Charlie Pond over on this side. North Worcester Street will be realigned a bit to kind of come in at more of a 90-degree angle. This area here, which is pavement today, will be planted or some other pervious treatment. And then we have, this is all new sidewalk along this side of 123. There is some existing sidewalk as you get further along. And then there's existing sidewalk here that will be reconstructed, and reconstructed sidewalk along North Worcester Street, which will meet up to some recently reconstructed sidewalk that the town took on further to the south. This is just kind of a zoomed in view. There will be a traffic signal at both locations. It will really function as one traffic light. These will be coordinated, but obviously a much improved safety improvement here. There'll be crosswalks to get pedestrians across the road here and across North Worcester Street. I'll turn it over to Elise now for anything she wants to point out, or kind of open it up to questions from folks on specific to resource areas, jurisdictional work, and Elise will kind of take the lead on answering those questions, unless there's questions on what I just spoke to that I can address first.
So I will, I'll just provide just a brief overview of what resource areas that we're dealing with here to provide some context, and be happy to go into greater detail on anything. So work is proposed for the project within bordering land subject to flooding. The riverfront area associated with Charlie Brook, it's a 200-foot riverfront area, and buffer zone to bank and bordering vegetated wetlands. Now, along Charlie Brook on the, along Charlie Pond on the south side of Route 123, we do have mapped habitat for priority habitat of rare species and estimated habitat of rare wildlife. We did get a determination from the division on December 5th that the project as proposed will not result in a prohibited take of listed species. And in general, work within resource areas for the projects is associated with just the reconfiguration of the roadway, as well as reconstruction and construction of sidewalks, as Matt kind of went over already. And as part of the project, we are proposing compensatory flood storage to the extent practicable, as well as restoration of some previously degraded riverfront area. And of course, we'll be using erosion and sediment controls throughout the project. So with that, I'd be happy to expand on any portions of the work in resource areas.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see at this scale where you may have sedimentation controls placed.
So we have sediment barrier located. That is this kind of blue line type here / symbol. Anywhere we have a bottom of slope work from the roadway.
And that delimits your limit of work?
Yes, well, there's a clearing limit outside of that. So the sediment barrier is placed between the tree clearing limit and the limit of grading. So out just beyond the limit of grading.
Yeah, and generally the tree line itself is offset a little bit, just to show that the erosion controls are there and that the line work is not right on top of each other. But wherever there's going to be any clearing, there will be erosion controls, down gradient of any clearing or any work like that, when we're dealing with any sort of wetlands, pond, streams, etc. So generally speaking, a lot of the erosion controls we're going to see on the southern side of the roadways, is that's where we see most of the wetlands, etc.
And I can't see the river inner and outer riparian zones. Are they there somewhere?
They are They're a little funky on this one, as the the stream itself, the river itself, is not a typical linear. It goes in almost a 90-degree angle. So it's going to be, there's a light pink line that's at the north side of the roadway. That's kind of the farthest buffer line. And that's going to be the 200-foot riverfront area. So it actually ends up going towards the intersection and then cutting right down at a 90-degree angle. So it's a little funky. So we really only see that the eastern side of the project is going to be, generally speaking, within riverfront area and within bordering land subject to flooding. So we see most of the resource area impact to the east and to the south.
But
There's a lot.
there's basically minimal change from existing conditions with regard to that, as I understand it. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, a lot of the work as far as resource areas go, it's within existing degraded or some other form of existing developed. The widening of the roadways is really put as far as possible from any of the resource areas. So I know specific to riverfront area, for example, work is not going to be any closer than the existing development.
We're all set for questions? Yes? You have any further information? Okay, so John, do you have any comments with regard to?
So we're gonna have this peer reviewed just to look at it for stormwater purposes. I've talked to the town manager about it, still trying to get a sense as to kind of the peer review, because from what I gather, the project's going to meet the stormwater handbook requirements at the state level to the extent most practical. But it's not going to meet any of our local bylaw. So that's something that we have to discuss internally, because I don't think it's going to be able to meet the local bylaw criteria. And then secondly, there's a lot of components with this site, and there's a lot of components from an environmental standpoint. It's a limited project. They've got redevelopment criteria. They've got land subject to flooding, calculations and things of that nature. It's quite a bit. And, obviously, I want to make sure that it's right. I just don't know if there's a lot going on with this project. I mean, I can definitely, give the commission my 2 cents, but it being a town project, I just don't know if we want outside source help for this one to look at it and make sure that it meets all the criteria. I want to be, opine from kind of any sort of because it's a town related project and I work for the town. So, I guess from my standpoint, I just want to make sure that it meets all the standards of the Wetlands Protection Act and all the 8 standards. And I don't know, I just looking for more information from the applicant to kind of give us a little bit more insight.
Specific to, apologies, yeah. Please let me know if there's anything else we could provide, in the meantime, or that would be helpful as far as digesting the project. I know there's a lot going on.
Well, for one, I guess if I'm looking at this and you're saying that there's compensatory flood storage,
Yep.
Where is it?
Sure.
I guess that's my question.
Yeah, yep. The compensatory flood storage, it's in 2 spots. So we're gonna see it on West Main Street, just on the north side there. So we have a little bit proposed there. And then on the other side of the driveway, there's gonna be another area of compensatory flood storage. It was extremely challenging to provide anything further, considering existing right-of-way constraints, existing development, and having a sufficient area where we could establish the grades and have it be an effective compensatory flood storage area.
And trying to keep it on public property and not creating that on private property.
Right, because if you did that, you'd have to submit a permit for those private property owners, and that can be challenging. So the area where you're proposing the compensatory flood storage is that dotted line or dotted hash?
Yes, yep.
Is there any way we can make that a different color in the next plan set? Because
Sure.
if I'm a contractor and I'm looking at that, red on red doesn't really work for me.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, further questions, John?
No, I don't have much. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of this is going to be contingent upon stormwater, making sure that everything jives. There's just going to make sure that compensatory flood storage calcs, I haven't looked at them in detail. I have to take a look and see if they look good. And then just making sure that it meets all the redevelopment criteria, because that's difficult to do. So I just want to make sure that that's correct. But I mean, we've got some time. I think this doesn't even have a DEP number yet. So DEP
but-
may have comments too. I don't know.
Is there, treatment of the stormwater, anywhere included in this? I mean, maybe you could just quickly review what has been included at this point.
Really, the only improvement we have is the replacement of the existing catch basins out there with deep sump catch basin units.
Other improvements were definitely looked at for a possibility, but again, with the right-of-way constraints, creating anything that would be effective to do more than what's currently been being provided would be, again, a challenge considering the site.
So where does the runoff go with the catch basin system that's out there now? Does it go directly into Charlie or in other locations, or?
So there's one outlet. So this is the Salmonese School driveway here. So just to the east of that, one of the discharge points for the project is at an existing head wall here on the south side of the roadway. And then the other discharge points is just to the west of South Worcester Street. There's an existing outlet right in here.
And so that goes directly into Charlie,
Correct.
and there's no way even that can be made, some kind of a, I don't know, it's, there's just so much that is gonna run off that road. And John, I guess that might be one function of peer review. I admitted that this is, probably a paved cow path at one time. But is there any way we can improve upon the stormwater with the existing constraints? So that might be one of the only benefits of peer review. I mean, if we can, I'm not saying there's any magic here.
Yeah, I mean, from my standpoint, you have to deal with what you have right here, what you're working with. And this is a very difficult, challenging area to be proposing, this magnitude of improvements. But I will say it's definitely needed, from what I see, yeah.
I mean, you have a wetland line adjacent Charlie Pond. And then you have a little area, although it's actually it looks like it's in the inner riparian zone, which appears to be upland. Could you have some kind of a treatment structure where it was, you see, I don't even see the elevations there, so I don't even know if it's possible.
This is pretty steep slope coming down from the roadway. It's one reason why we don't have sidewalk along this edge. We had to get a waiver for that from MassDOT, because if we built sidewalk along this edge, you know, our limit of work would have expanded out. We would have ended up needing a retaining wall to avoid impacts to the wetland boundary here and over here.
So basically, you're saying that's a steep slope and that it's
Yeah.
just not even something that could be considered.
Right.
I have a question here. With the lengthening of the corner on North Worcester there, moving that over, and the width of that road, where is the snow gonna go? By, you know, it just seems like we're increasing a huge amount of winter snow in this area because it's not gonna be pushed down the road. Has there been any thought for what's gonna happen there? This is almost like what happens in the center of town.
So yeah, I'd have to defer to MassDOT on their maintenance of this, how they do it today and how they would attack it in the future. I don't have the answer to that. Is that this is their, they have jurisdiction over this section of, West Main in Old Colony.
It's definitely something we can look into though and see what we can find out for the commission.
I mean, you do have that area of pavement that is going to be converted to pervious surface. So,
Yeah, right in here.
yeah.
Where specifically is the concern for the snow storage again? I'm sorry, I wasn't following that location.
Well, I mean, normally it was being pushed across the road and continuing on, but now then when we're coming around a corner here, you know, we have all this section of pavement here that you're increasing. Where is that snow going?
You're talking about around this corner?
Correct.
Yeah, well, the width, so the width of North Worcester Street, the actual roadway width, it doesn't change drastically. We're just moving the roadway over here, to make this a safer movement, as opposed to the, you know, today this is kind of skewed, so this is a larger radius.
But now we've added width to the main road and we've offset it further.
Right.
So,
Yeah, but
yeah.
Joe, the reality is if we get significant snow, the roads get narrower.
But now, I mean, just there's a lot going on here on this corner if you're going to talk about narrowing the road now.
Well, I mean, the snow is just pushed to the side, but the actual drive area is less in a significant snowstorm until, you know, they come and they with the big plows and.
Correct, but it has to go somewhere. It has to be
Mailboxes
pushed
and all
somewhere. And obviously it can't be piled in these areas because it's going to be a visibility thing. So this is my concern.
Noted.
Yeah. All right. So anyone in the meeting have any questions or comments about this project? So it sounds like we have additional information and the whole issue of whether or not we're going to be able to do peer review assessment of this project. So we need to continue. Our next meeting is January 13th. I assume you're amenable to that.
Yes.
So unless there's further questions or discussions, or John, is there any specific information you want to talk about now, or do we can go ahead and continue?
I mean, the other topic of discussion to talk about is Chartley Pond.
Mhm.
and whether there's a perennial stream that's associated with it, like we said similarly with Meadowbrook a few years ago.
Yeah, but
Because
I had assumed that the inner and outer riparian zones were centered on, the dam, for example, and the outflow. to the-
yes. But the question is, does that man-made restriction debunk the stream status? That's the question.
Well, you'll have to explain the word debunk to me in this context. because,
So I guess my question
I
is
would,
that
I
the
would
way,
question, is that,
the
does
the way
that
that the
establish
wetland,
it, or?
the way that the wetland protection's worded is that if there is a man-made restriction or obstruction that is there, creating a pond, from what I gather, it doesn't alleviate the status of a perennial stream. So, because if we remove that structure, the stream now is there. So, I guess that's my question.
Yeah, but I thought the inner and outer riparian zones established that. Were based on that structure and the presumed
Right.
existence of.
So if we look at this plan, I guess my question is they cut it off at the dam.
There is a plan view that it goes further down, and so if you don't mind going to the next screen, Matt. All right, so if we look over at the left side here, that's where the dam is, if that helps. Sorry, on the right side. Apologies. On the right side, I was pointing on my screen, but that doesn't help you guys. So that's going to be the side that has the actual dam.
The dam's on both sides of the road, and I'm talking about Chartley Pond
Yeah.
having a perennial stream interior of it.
Okay.
So I would take a look at that,
Sure.
and I would take a look to see, because when I first came on board with Norton, that was one of the projects that I was first given to look at. So I would just make sure that that criteria is correct and it's in alignment with the Wetlands Protection Act.
Sure.
I mean, as I understand it, maybe somebody can correct me if I'm not correct, but as I understand it, this region was a huge swamp, a bog, and it was excavated to refine bog iron. There was basically a huge excavation to forge iron here. Is that your understanding of the history of this?
Mine?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I'm just basically trying to be consistent with what the commission has looked at for these ponds moving forward. And I just want to make sure that the designation of the interior perennial stream is looked at and thoroughly evaluated to make sure that whether it, because I just remember from the last project we had, it was a topic of discussion.
Right, but in the case of Meadowbrook, historically, there was actually a stream there. And then they put the dam in, and the stream under the pond got submerged. Here, there was no, as I understand it, it was just a swamp, and it was excavated. So it's not really clear at any time there was an established stream, and then it was dammed up as a retained pond for a mill. So it just makes it difficult. So I think just arbitrarily choosing that the stream is related to the dam outflow and throwing the inner and outer riparian zones is kind of the best we can do in this circumstance.
We can certainly, do some research as well and see if we can find a little bit more information to support one way or another, if that would be helpful for the commission, just to make sure that everything's identified correctly.
I mean, John, I don't think it can change the overview of the project because,
No, it's still gonna be a limited project. It's still gonna be, they're way over the riverfront, calculations because there's no way they can possibly get under it. But, you know, I just want to make sure, you know, it's never been done before. I've never worked on a project in this area before. So I just want to make sure that whatever kind of determinations we're making from this project moving forward, they're the correct ones. Because this is the driver and focus of just making sure that we're consistent and accurate with our review. But yeah, I mean, there is historic information from the 1800s that is on USGS. So
Okay.
you can take a look and see some of the historic maps and see kind of what the status was back then. And if it was a pond back then it's a pond.
no, we
Definitely.
don't, we don't have the date as to when that dam was installed. But there may have been other dams before then, so it's hard to. All right, well, unless there's further discussion, I mean, you guys got the tenor that we're trying to be academically correct. So maybe a little bit more information about the history of Chartley might help be certain that we're doing everything correctly.
Sure.
And then we can consider a motion to continue until January 13th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mark, seconded by Joe, and I'm taking the thumbs up from Dan as a vote yes. And Joe and Mark, how do you vote?
Yes.
Aye.
And I'll throw it an aye. So motion carries. So we'll see you guys on the 13th.
Great. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
You bet. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is request for certificate of compliance, 1 Gilbert's Way, 250-1106. And I think that was, yes, that was a porch and moving the existing pool.
Yes, and I was out there last week. I met James Fleming and looked at everything. Everything looks good. The site's stabilized. All the work is done, and James is very happy that it's done as well, and so is his family. So I told him that he did not need to attend the meeting tonight, and that the commission would most likely issue a certificate of compliance for the work that he's completed.
And your review of that was that site inspected, and you're comfortable with the full COC being issued.
Correct.
Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So we have motion by Mark, seconded by Joe, and we're looking for a thumb up or down from Dan. That was a yes. And Mark and Joe,
Aye.
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye. Motion carries. And so the only thing outstanding was the ANRAD, which you said was a simple, I can't remember the flag numbers, but like 12 to 26 or something on that order.
13 to 26.
13, 26, boy, those numbers. As establishing the wetland line associated with the associated plan. So any other questions on that ORAD determination? If not, we can consider a motion to issue the ORAD with the specific information we just talked about.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, seconded by Joe. So between Joe, Mark, and Dan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Are you, Dan, you are frozen. I tell you, electronics, there you go, we got a thumbs up, and I'll throw in an eye, so that, I think, concludes. Dan, American Sign Language? Well, I mean, it could be an educational experience, we all learned it. Anything else we need to talk about?
No, but I just looked online, in retrospect. There's an 1885 USGS map. Shows Chartley being a pond, so no need to worry about that.
Okay. All right,
So, this will be our last meeting until the end of the year. We won't be seeing each other for another month. Looks like. So if anyone has anything that they want to discuss or reach out, feel free to do so to the office. And, did everyone go into the office and sign?
well, that was, the phones have been out, so
Yeah,
I haven't.
no,
been able to-
okay,
So that's the one order of business we need to deal with this week is
Okay.
make an arrangement with Megan for coordinating with the notary. So hopefully the phone system will be fixed tomorrow and we can begin making our respective appointments to go in.
just so everybody's aware, Megan will be, becoming a notary, so we won't have this issue anymore.
Yeah, but we'll still have to be there and sign in front of her.
Yeah, which is fine, but you won't have to worry about this kind of double signing thing anymore.
Okay,
I'll be back tomorrow as soon as the RMV is done with me. Which
Uh-oh, did
Oh,
you get a
poor
new
thing.
license?
I have to get my real ID, yeah.
Oh, no.
Hopefully it's a quick
Oh, that
thing.
got pushed off.
Yeah, I kept getting lucky. I got pushed off, but I'm flying out somewhere early next year, so I want to make sure I'm up to date.
Good luck.
You going to the one over in North Attleboro or Attleboro?
Taunton. I got an appointment in Taunton
Okay.
at 9,
Okay.
so
is this for your real ID, you mean, or?
yeah,
Yeah, it's,
I pushed it off as long as I could.
why? It was kind of fun.
You and I have different ideas of fun, I guess.
Well, you get to sit and read for a while.
That's true.
All right.
All
All
right.
right, well, until
Happy
next
holidays,
time,
everyone.
everybody.
Okay.
Have a good holiday, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Peter J. Wiggins.
Thank you, Peter.